Yeah, we got it.
All right. Welcome to the June meeting of the Western North Carolina Users Group in Asheville, North Carolina. Today we have a presentation from Dan Calloway about CasaOS. So without further ado, let's talk to Dan.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and start the screen sharing here.
A reminder to all to mute and blank out your cameras to save bandwidth and reduce distractions.
I will need to make sure that I'm being heard before we start, before you mute. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Okay. All right, so you should be seeing my screen now. And let me go out here. All right. So you should be able to see my CasaOS setup.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So today, what I thought I would do is I'm going to do a presentation on an application that I've been running out of my home lab here for over a month. Started out using a Raspberry Pi single board computer Model 4 gig. It ran okay. It didn't have any problems with it. CasaOS performed nicely. However, as I'll explain later here, it requires, well, in a few seconds, it requires a minimum of 8 gigs to perform nominally. And so you want to have something, if you've got a Raspberry Pi and it's only 4 gig, that may work, but it's not going to be, the best. All right. And so you want to get a Raspberry Pi that's got 8 gigs, and which is what I have now. So I started out using Raspberry Pi Model 4, and then I left that CasaOS setup and went to a Raspberry Pi Model 5, 8 gig, and reset up CasaOS and everything. I've been using that now for a little over a week, and it's performing absolutely wonderful. So it's doing well. So anyway, what is CasaOS? CasaOS is in essence, it's a Linux-based open source personal cloud with Docker application. And where CasaOS shines is in the Docker applications. It is a personal cloud. It is a NAS to some degree. I do have another NAS, a Western Digital 8 terabyte NAS. It's a far better NAS than CasaOS is, but that's not where CasaOS shines. It shines in the applications themselves, and I'll show you that later on in the presentation. So let's see, what does CasaOS require hardware-wise? Okay, so hardware-wise, you can use what's called a Zima board, which is developed by a company called, I can't remember the name of it now. It escapes me. It's Icewhale, ICEWHALE. And it is a single board computer, just like the Raspberry Pi, but it's a little more powerful. It's an 8 gig board. It has a little few enhancements that the Raspberry Pi does not have. But all in all, you don't need a Zima board in order to run CasaOS by any stretch. You can run it on an Intel NUC. And in some instances, the Intel NUC might even be better than the Zima board. But I am using the Raspberry Pi Model 5, 8 gig, and it's, like I said, running really well. Now, CasaOS supports the AMD 64, the ARM 64, and the ARM v7 architecture. It will run on an x86 PC. It doesn't have to be a single board computer. However, CasaOS is really designed for the single board computer. Now I'm running a desktop computer, obviously, that's not single board. And so CasaOS is running on the Raspberry Pi, but I'm interfacing it through my desktop. All right, so CasaOS is compatible with a couple of Linux distributions. One of them is Ubuntu 2404. Another is Debian 12 Bookworm. Raspberry Pi OS, which is basically Debian Debian 12 bookworm for the ARM64 architecture, and CentOS itself. I don't know what version of CentOS that it runs on, although CentOS now has been deprecated in light of other distros that replaced it. But as I mentioned earlier, you will need a minimum of 8 gigs of RAM recommended for optimal performance. Now, this is the Raspberry Pi, and Pete, you'll want to take note of this. This is the Raspberry Pi that I have. I bought it off of Amazon. I didn't get the kind of kit. Okay, what I get is the board, the heat sink, the fan, and not the power supply, but all of that, and then and that's it. Okay, so it's the board itself, the heat sink, and the fan. And I already had a power supply, and a box, and you get the box itself. So I had to put this together. Took me, half hour to put it together, all together. And because you got to screw the board down in the box, and you've got to then apply the tape to the paste to the back of the heat sink, and you got to apply that to the board itself, and seat everything. And then once you do that, you're good to go. So this Raspberry Pi Model 5 is an 8 gig RAM model. It uses the BCM2712 2.4 gigahertz CPU, which performs like a regular computer. I mean, bar none. I would not have known I wasn't in a regular computer when I was on my Raspberry Pi after I put this thing in place. Anyway, it has 2 USB 3.0 ports. It has one 2.0 port. It has 2 micro HDMI ports. It has 1 gigabit Ethernet LAN port, and it is LAN, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth connectivity capable. So it's a great little single board computer. Now, in addition to this computer, I also went out and purchased a PNY 512 gigabyte micro SD card. Can't remember how much this thing cost me. It's probably around $10. It wasn't much at all. And I wanted the extra storage because you can run CasaOS in 32 gigs of storage, but you're not going to have many Docker applications installed if you do that. So I wanted to have plenty of storage here. In addition to that, and I'll show you later when I get into the CasaOS itself, I have a 2 terabyte, 3.5 inch SATA HDD running in an enclosure outside of the Pi itself, connected to one of the USB 3.0 ports. And that interfaces with CasaOS, and I can add files, take away files, modify files, you name it, through the interface of CasaOS across the network, just like a regular NAS. And so in that respect, it is a regular NAS, but it is also more than that. It's a Docker application platform. Now, one of the other things that I needed was the Raspberry Pi Imager software, and I'll show you why that's important. You can use Balena Etcher, or you can use Rufus or whatever, but this makes it so much easier when you're working with Raspberry Pi, and I'll show everybody why in a moment. I installed Raspbian OS x64 ARM Debian 12 bookworm 64-bit onto the micro SD card. That is this one here. Okay, that goes into the Pi, and of course then you just boot up, and that gives you Debian 12 bookworm in the Raspberry Pi. All right, so CasaOS, I said, is an application. It is an application layer that resides on top of the operating system. Now, it is not in and of itself an operating system, even though it's called CasaOS. It's not a true operating system. What CasaOS is it is an application layer framework that rides on top of the operating system, Debian 12 in my case. If you're running Ubuntu, it'd be Ubuntu. And to install that, you'll use a curl script, and I'll show that to you in a moment. Now, this is, if you have never seen a Zima board before, this is what it looks like. It's a decentralized server. It's actually called a server board, unlike a Raspberry Pi. It comes in a 2, 4, and 8 gig model. So if you wanted to get this to run CasaOS, and by the way, CasaOS comes pre-installed on the Zima board, then you'll want to get the 8 gig model for it to have CasaOS pre-installed. The advantage of having the Zima board over the Raspberry Pi is it will allow you to have 4K video throughput, and it has a 32 gigabyte onboard storage, so you need to enhance that through one of your USB ports. And it does have 2 USB 3.0 slots and two, not one, but 2 1 gigabit Ethernet LAN ports, and that's why it's called a server, whereas the Raspberry Pi is not a server unless you add something to the hat and make it a server. And then CasaOS comes pre-installed, as I said. All right. So let me come back up here. And so here's how you go about installing it. Let me come back here. Okay. It's in 3 steps. And so the first thing you do is I pull up this Raspberry Pi Imager software that I have running in my MX Linux desktop. And I've got a thumb drive attached to my desktop right now to demonstrate this. But you have to have an adapter to put the micro SD card into, so that you can then place the adapter into the USB slot that you're interfacing with your desktop. And then you bring up the Raspberry Pi software, and you just go ahead and choose device. And when you do that, I'm running a Raspberry Pi 5. And so I would choose this Raspberry Pi 5 here platform as the Raspberry Pi device. Okay. And this is what makes this imaging software preferable over like Etcher. The operating system that I would be choosing here is Raspberry Pi OS 64-bit, which is WN12 Bookworm 64-bit. So I would choose that. And then for storage, I would go out and choose the Patriot memory, which is where I would have the adapter set up with the memory card in it. And so I'll just select that and then click next. Now it says, would you like to apply OS customization settings? Yes, I would, but let me go ahead and edit those so I can show you what they look like. Now this is where the Raspberry Pi imaging software is an advantage here, because what I can do is I can set up the host name that the Raspberry Pi will use. I can set up the username and password for the Raspberry Pi. If I want to use wireless LAN instead of hardwired, mine's hardwired, then you can just check this box and put in your SSID for your wireless network, and then put in the password for your wireless network, and that will set you up automatically with LAN connectivity once the Pi comes up in WN12. Then you can set your locale settings. So it's set to UTC, ETC, UTC, I believe, by default. So I set that. You just do a down arrow, and I selected America, New York, and then the keyboard layout is US. And then I come up here to services, and you can use password authentication, like checking that radio button, or what I use is public key authentication only. And this is the public key right here. It's a very long key. So I'm not going to show you the whole key anyway. But if you don't have a key, then this is not going to be grayed out where it says run SSH keygen. And you can actually click on that button and generate your SSH key, RSA. And then you can utilize it. And then you can add your SSH key. All right. So let's go back, save that. And now what I would do here was I would click yes and go ahead and apply the settings. And then it would go out and it would image the micro SD card, 512 gig. That process on my computer took about 20 minutes. And then it validates, it verifies the card and makes sure that the WN12 Bookworm software is shop 512 checksummed, and that makes you've got a good image. Once that's done, then you can just close this and get out of it, and then come up, and next thing that you do is you take that micro SD card out and pop it into the Raspberry Pi and power it up. You wait about 2 minutes, and then you're ready to log in. So what I would do is SSH into the IP address of my Raspberry Pi, which is 192.168.1.75. And you can see it saw the key and logged me right in. There's no username and password here. And so now I'm in the Raspberry Pi looking at it. All right, and I can work with it as I need to work with it. All right, let's go out of that, and let me go back to here. All right, once that's done, then you can get into the Raspberry Pi, as I mentioned, and then you are ready to run the CasaOS software for the application layer. And so to do that, let me see. Let me just go ahead and close this. All right, and go out to this website, which is casaos.zimaspace.com. Very simple to do. And you go down here is first of all, let me show you the site. It's pretty nice. Got a lot of stuff on it. You can take a look at this at your leisure, but I just wanted to show it to you. All right. It's got all the stuff about, CasaOS that you'd ever want to know. All right. So let's go back to the homepage on this website. And right here is a curl command. And over here is the box that you click to copy that command. And when you copy that command, then you come out to your terminal, and my dog's barking. Missy, be quiet. And you and just paste that in using Control-Shift-V. And then I'm not going to hit enter because I don't want it to run, but you hit enter, and then you wait. And CasaOS will go out and it'll look at your the operating system that you're running on the Pi or whatever device you're using. It looks at how much storage you have, what kind of memory you have, that kind of stuff. Once it's gone through its checks, then it starts the process, which is very fast. And it only took about less than 3 minutes probably to install CasaOS framework. All right. Once that's installed, let me get rid of this so I don't make a mistake and run it by accident. Once that's done, then you're good to go. And it'll tell you at the end of this process that you can go back out to your web browser on your desktop computer and go to the IP address of your Pi to port 80, which is what CasaOS uses, and you should be able to access the interface. Now, I can't use port 80, and there's a reason for that because I'm using Nginx Proxy Manager, which I'll show you later on why I'm using it. And so what I had to do is go into CasaOS and reconfigure it. Very easy to do, and I'll show you how to do that. And turn it away from
All right. I guess we'll wait a moment to see if Dan can rejoin. Y'all can hear me, correct? Okay. Well, we'll just wait a minute then to see if Dan can get himself resituated. I don't know if Dan knows he's off. That did occur to me, but I don't also know of how to let him know. I guess I could, just in case. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't have a phone number for Dan.
What if you put your camera on and kind of signaled him or something?
Well, I think the notion is he'd be able to hear us, or yeah, I don't know. I'll try that just in case.
Dan lost power. That's why his connection went out. There's a contractor working and his power went out. So that's why he lost connection.
Thanks, Santiago.
Yeah.
All right.
He
I
said
guess,
thanks.
does he have a notion
I
of
don't
like,
know how long it's going to be out.
Yeah.
So I may, in fact, not be able to come back.
He says he doesn't know how long it'll be out, so he doesn't know
Yeah.
if he'll come back or not.
Yeah, we
Okay.
just heard him.
Okay. Oh, they can hear you through my speakers through my
Okay.
phone. So yeah.
But we don't have any video
Yeah,
through you. So.
unfortunately, I was right in the middle of the sentence. All of a sudden, the power went out, and I thought, well, I guess I'm off the platform. So I thought of a way to try to get a hold of you guys, and I remembered that I have your phone number, so I called you.
Okay, I appreciate you letting us know that, because actually I had to step out for a second to walk my dog, and I didn't even realize that you disconnected until you called me.
Okay. I would say that right now the power is not going to come back up for a while, so I'm probably done for the day.
Can Dan come in by telephone just to
If you guys
join the
want to go
group?
along with the meeting, I'll do the presentation next week.
Someone's asking if you can come in through the phone.
And just join the meeting.
That's not going to work.
He said that's not going to work.
Okay. I hear him through your phone.
Okay. Okay, yeah, they can hear you, and okay, so I guess you're, like you said, you're done for the day.
Yeah, I mean, because I could be sitting here for a half hour, an hour, 2 hours. I'm not going to do that. So, the power doesn't go off here normally unless somebody turns it off, unless we have a storm, of course. But we don't have no storm today, so I think that a contractor's probably turned the power off for some reason.
Okay,
And,
okay.
and that could be off for an hour. I have no idea.
I see. Okay. Well, I appreciate you letting us know that.
Yeah. So just tell Brent that I will pick up next month and do the presentation next month, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. So
10-4.
Yeah, he said 10. He said 10-4.
All right. All right. You guys have a good meeting.
All right. You too, and we'll see you. We'll see you, I guess, whenever you're back up or something like that, like next meeting, I guess.
Okay.
Okay. We'll see you. Bye-bye. Okay, there we go. So yeah, his power's out.
Question, Brent.
Yes.
So now, on the basis of what he presented, as a permanent newbie, I have some basic questions about what you use this for. And I wonder, it's a request for comments from people who, do such things, what they find it useful for.
I mean, it's not for me. I kind of gave up on the home, network thing like a long time ago. So I'll defer to others as far as what folks like to do. I obviously, controlling your own stuff means it's not in the cloud. So I would assume that would be the one focus, but if anyone else wants to say how they would use it or why they would use it.
Let me ask a question about my question. I understood it is a cloud. It's a personal cloud. So to me, that means you can access it away from home.
Right, but the stuff is on your stuff. It's to me, when you say personal cloud, I mean there is a cloud portion of it, means the interface is in the cloud, but you still own the data. You still control where the data is, which makes it considerably less cloudy. Which, I mean, that's not a bad model, especially if you're really focused on keeping your own stuff on your own stuff. I understand the limitations and the problematic nature of storing all your data in the cloud, and giving Google, Microsoft, Amazon, whatever, access to it. But yeah, I don't. To me, I don't need that complexity in my life of running my own stuff, nor do I have a particular specific need for privacy in those realms. I mean, any more than any given person needs privacy, which obviously everyone does. So that's my angle on it. But like, what notions do you have, Steve?
I'm muted, so I unmuted. No, it's just as a base newbie, I'm thinking, number one, this means if I'm away from home, I can still access stuff on that server that I have at home, and I just don't use a home server at all. So if I started out by putting a home server on to do some things, without anybody being able to access it outside the network, that would be step one. And step two is to enable my ability to access my home server, my home network, and the server from away. But then the question is, if I can access my home network from away, which I can obviously, to check my email and whatever, I believe. I'll have to think about that, but it seems to me, because I forget, my email is in the web, so I'm not really accessing anything at home. But if I wanted to access my home network from away, I guess there's a way I could set that up. I don't know that I have anything. I don't have anything set up to do that deliberately. I have no history of needing to get anything that's on the hardware at home. So I haven't even done that. So, I mean, to me, there's a number of different levels. Basic is you use your home network at home, and outside of that, you do everything that's web-based. And then there's level one where you say, well, no, there's some stuff at home that I want to be able to access. You set that up. And then there's something where you actually have, I mean, I don't know that you need a server just to access a computer at home. If you have, because you have SSH, for example, right? So if you set up things like SSH, you could access your home network from away without having a server involved. And then the next level is a server. And then the final level is putting that in the cloud, where you tell other people, or having that available via the cloud, and other people can access it. So this is, the idea of a personal cloud, I guess, is nobody else can access it but you. And you can access it away from home. Which is for some reason convenient to get those particular applications. But that's a permanent newbie talking.
You're muted.
We revoked your newbie badge years ago, so you're not allowed to claim that anymore.
You can't hide behind it.
Oh, shucks.
Well, Dan was trying to explain that to me. And maybe, I don't know, he does all these YouTube videos. So maybe he wants them available in the cloud, in his cloud, without going through YouTube. I don't know. Could that be a thing, Brent? I don't even know.
I don't know what all this thing supports. Obviously, we didn't get there, so maybe we're being a little
before the facts.
Yeah, we can wait to see what is presented next month. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's mostly about privacy and control and cost, because I mean, if you have 20 terabytes in the cloud, that's not nothing. That's not going to be free.
But he's paying for Docker too, right?
Docker is open. Docker is just a open source containering system. There's no.
Oh, okay. But
it's just how this thing comes together.
But is Docker storage?
No, I mean, it doesn't. It's a container system, so you can have a Docker contain. I do not. I've never been a huge fan of container things. Like so, I my virtualization is basically like VMs and
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
it.
it seems to me that if he's using Docker to access a cloud, then whatever is in the cloud, he's paying for the storage on that anyway, right?
I
Even if it's a personal cloud, it's still a cloud, right?
well, when you say cloud is just computers, so
Yeah, I don't know.
when you say personal cloud, my notion is this lives on your stuff. So calling it a cloud, I mean, it's just
Oh, okay.
personal. It's just
So
a
he's
personal
saying
server.
I've got all these terabytes of storage. Why not fill them up with stuff of mine and then grant access as I see fit to um, to like members of the Linux group or something like that. Does that make sense?
I mean, yes, you could definitely. Um,
So if he wanted to, create a video, which he does, and put that in his cloud on his hardware, then he said, "Here, Steve, here's a link to this file." Then you, Steve, could access that on his hardware.
again,
I don't
maybe.
know. There again, I'm theorizing.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, let's just wait until, and then we can
Yeah.
ask those
Okay.
questions next month because
All right.
this isn't really my forte. This isn't something I would do for myself.
Gosh, we finally found something you're not perfect at. So,
It's just, I mean, I used to do this, but it's, I mean, ages ago. Like I
yeah.
wanted to run my own DNS server. I wanted to run my own time server. I wanted to run my own file server and be able to access everything from it. But it's like, no, it's like I want to do other things. Like for me, computers are now work, right? Mostly. And I don't run like Gentoo or Linux from scratch or things where I had to spend all my time working on it. Because again, working on computers and making them work, that's work. That's not the fun stuff anymore, sadly. I ruined my hobby with making it my career.
Yeah. Yeah.
But let's we have a fair amount of time left, so I mean, any other? I mean, again, I don't want to overwork this, given that we will be revisiting. But any quick comments on what was seen already before we move on? All right, I guess Gene, we've been talking to you. So what have you been up to?
Let's see. Well, I did the little experiment where I went out to you guys in stereo, and that was solving that problem. Um, the other things that I've done, I inherited an older HP Elite book, and the reason I inherited it was that the person who had it had gone through like 4 batteries and um, and couldn't keep a battery in it, and the little connecting pole, the charging port in the computer itself, was probably not well designed, and maybe had been jangled enough that it got wonky and loose and all that. And then something else. Oh, it had an older, like maybe one of the early SSDs in it, but it only had like 200 and some gigs of storage, or megs, gigs, I guess. So, so I inherited it, and so I went through and solved the battery problem, I think, was that wonky connector, and it took a ton of ingenuity and all my skills as a problem solver to find a kid with braces and those little rubber bands. So I put that around the charging thing and stuffed that in the hole, and it seems to be staying and working now. And I think her battery problem came from that. So there's the battery solve. The SSD, there's nothing you could do about that. I did try a larger spinning drive in it, but it was so slow after the SSD that I gave up and went back to the SSD, figuring I can just use it as a like a server. What is that, Steve?
You're muted, Steve.
I had back surgery in December.
Oh,
And what the surgeon recommended before he disappeared was that I use this apparatus, which is designed to provide electromagnetic waves and encourage healing, and to use it for X number of months. So it's now 6 months. I try to use it every day for 2 hours. It is a bit of a pain, although, it's I try not to go out of the house with it, because I don't, I imagine getting on an airplane and somebody shouting, "Bomb!"
Bob. He's wearing a
So,
Bob. Well,
so
you
I
said
have taken it on an airplane on a trip once, but only as carrying it in a bag.
you
And
said your surgeon disappeared. I mean, did
yes,
he really disappear, or is he in a
yes,
vat of acid in the back of your
no.
house?
2 days before my May visit, I get a phone call from Mission Hospital, with which he was affiliated, saying only Dr. Mendoza is no longer affiliated with Mission Hospital. And it's a recording. It came on my voicemail saying, "We'll offer you an appointment with basically the other spine surgeon who still works at Mission Spine." So after thinking about it for about a month, I said, "Okay, I'll take that appointment," which is now in August. And I'm thinking, this is shitty follow up in case there is anything, because I was supposed to be seen in May. I was supposed to be seen in April. It was delayed to May because he was doing surgery. And now it's delayed to August. By the time I'll end up seeing somebody, it'll be December, at which point it's the end of the year. And they'll say, "Well, we're at the final. Oh, you didn't do so well. I guess if we had seen you back 5 months ago, we would have said do this, that, and the other." So I'm a little pissed. And yeah,
Don't
I
you
go
love
on.
Mission?
I go on to Google most days and put his name in to see. On my iPhone, it says, when I do that, it says the first entry is permanently closed. Now, I don't understand how a person can be permanently closed. Dead, yes. Permanently closed, no. So anyway, I don't know. Maybe he was taken care of and thrown out by ICE.
I think maybe he had done enough, sold enough of those back devices to people like you, and he retired.
Well, it's a funny story because they want to charge you $5,000 for these. And then I was told, most people get it for free. I was told by the person working for the company. So I said, "Gee, that's a lot of money." They said, "Well, tell us what your bills are." And, so I sent them, I told them my bills. I gave them the annual estimate. And they said, oh, you're free. It's free for you. So, okay. So then I get a message later, a paper or an email, and it looks like they translated what I said multiplied it by like 15. So I said, you have the option of changing it. I'm not taking the option. I'm just going to ignore it. I didn't write that. You wrote that.
So now they've manipulated you into Medicare fraud.
No, because Medicare didn't pay for it.
Oh, okay.
So it is apparently, I'm not sure what's going on, but apparently if there's 5% of the people they send these to who pay, or Medicare pays for, they're making out enough. Medicare will not pay for what I had was called a single level fusion, and they will not pay for it for that indication.
Well, how do you feel?
In some ways I'm feeling a lot better. The pain I had before. Now, I feel more comfortable standing up than flexing. And they told me no BLT. They didn't tell me how long no BLT. BLT, bending, lifting, or twisting. So that means you get to clap your hands and say, "Wife, could you pick this up for me?" Which gets, so I have a bunch of, I have a couple of grabbers that I try to keep handy. But I also, in the last few months, my physical therapist says, it wasn't supposed to be forever. So I do bending. And what the spine surgeon said, he says, the best thing in the world is squatting. But one of the problems having the indication was a radiculopathy, which means the nerve roots are damaged. And I ended up after after several decades, from 2014, I had a clinical radiculopathy. And so I got foot drop now, which is likely permanent. And I've got very, very skinny calves. And I've got some degree of weakness. And I also have balance problems because, the nerves carrying muscle information, proprioception from the legs, that's how your body automatically keeps you stable without you trying, So I'm good sometimes. It's easier for me walking than standing. If I'm going to stand for a while, I'm going to have to, adjust. And imagine picking up, we went to the store and I had to pick up, I didn't have to, but I chose to pick up the potting mix, which probably weighed 15 pounds. And it was clumsy. And I'm going, like this, moving it into the car from the cart. So you do what you can and you get ready for the end. That's the very
That's so encouraging.
Well, I think it's better. This was micro endoscopic surgery as opposed to open spine surgery. And it was actually, from pain point of view, zilch. I think in the 2 days after surgery, they routinely give you a narcotic, but they sent me, but I have on my own in the last 40 years probably never taken a narcotic. Thank goodness I have never felt I required one. I don't know what I'm missing, but I may never know what I'm missing.
Don't want to change chances.
There's stop and there's blunt, and narcotic is blunt and stop is non-existent. So just the way it is.
Yeah.
Welcome to old age.
Oh yeah, I think I've been here a while. I'm starting to tell my kids, I'm sending them notes. Look, think of questions you would want to ask me after I'm dead. And then ask me before I'm dead. Because this was my experience. It was after my parents died that it occurred to me, gee, I don't really know a whole bunch of how they thought about this, that, and the other. And so, when you're in your 40s and you're busy with kids and work and everything, the last thing you're going to think about is, I need to sit down with my parents and understand their mind, their mental processes, because I'm derived from them. And at some point, it will occur to me that I want to know. It doesn't happen.
So, Gene, did you intend to hand off to Steve? And
Oh no. But it's always good to hear from. It's been a while, like you said. We've missed you. So it's good to catch up.
Yeah.
Even if it's depressing, it's good to catch up.
Well, that's not even my Linux stuff. So when it's my turn, I may have something to say.
Okay. Well, let's see. That was the Elite book. And anyway, I solved all the problems and I'm using it and pretty happy with it. So I've just added another lamb to the fold. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, depending on how you count them now.
That's why you want your own free NAS server.
And that was the other thing. I sold my house.
Oh.
So I'm no longer a resident of as Dan used to call it, Barnyardsville. I am now in the wilds of Woodfin.
Okay.
So if anybody's looking for me.
Where are you at? Are you in some kind of fancy development?
No. I'm in a little dinky 3-room, blah, blah, apartment house. It's a house, but it's a rental. So, I'm renting a house.
Oh, okay.
But it's small.
Yeah.
It's much smaller than Brent visited me one time, biked over from his eyrie over in Mars Hill, and it's not that. It's much smaller. So anyway, that's that. The other thing is,
I got a quick question.
sure.
Do you run the same distro on all your computers?
Yeah, I just centered on Xubuntu because I like FCE and I like Ubuntu, and they just seem to do everything I want to do. But I am, I'm a permanent noob too, and I like everything spoon fed to me. I don't like having to get into the terminal and do all my work there. I don't mind going in there and messing around a little bit. And that's another thing. I have two computers now with fingerprint readers, and Linux does not be happy with fingerprint readers. So I don't know. It's not enough to make me go to Windows or some other thing, but at least my flavor of Linux is not. There are all kinds of proposals for people to do this. Add this repository and go there and do this, and I do that. Follow the instructions and ask the computer if it's doing if the fingerprint reader software is working, and it's always a resounding no. So I don't know. At some point, I don't need it. I don't care about it. I just resent the fact that there's something that I have that's not working the way it should. That's just a personal failure on my part. I'm a perfectionist, I guess, in tiny little things. In the main and the large, I'm a slob. So, can there be a perfectionist slob? I don't know.
You're a perfect slob.
I'm a perfect slob. There you go. So,
and you're living in downtown Woodfin?
No, there is no downtown Woodfin.
I know, but
I
there's
said
that.
the wilds of Woodfin, Steve. I'm really out, say a mile and a half off of I-26, off of the New Stock exit.
West or east?
I'm not telling you, Pete.
You might show up.
Yeah, I don't want anybody at the house. I mean, I
What's
don't
your
mind
dinner?
Brent coming to the house. I don't, all that. But
So we have to do a search with a 3 mile.
Well, I don't know who Jitsi is and who's hearing Jitsi from me. So I feel like Rusty now. That we've got Rusty 2. How did we get Rusty 2? We'll have to ask him.
Son of Rusty.
Son of Rusty, yeah. Rusty Jr. Anyway, that and I have always thought that capturing or recording audio like you, Steve, and passing it on to the kids or whatever would be a nice thing to do, to just start rambling like I do and tell them about how things were, when I was a kid and younger and before they were born and after they were born. So I wanted to look at audio capture, and Firefox, for some reason, is not a big fan of audio capture, or at least my Firefox isn't. But Chrome is. And I have always felt like Google and Chrome were the enemy and blah, blah, blah. So having this luxury of another box, then I can sequester Chrome to that computer. So that made it another kind of selling point for keeping my friend's laptop. But it works great. I'm really impressed with the audio capture on Chrome. If anybody ever wants to do anything like that. So that's me. Questions? Talk amongst yourselves. Yes.
Just the thing about Chrome, I'm assuming because there's a lot of Chromium-based browsers. So if someone was interested, I don't understand how I would approach audio capture, but if someone was interested in using this as you do or suggest, it might be or might not be, since I'm ignorant, available generically in all the Chromium-based browsers.
You would think so. I don't have any experience with that. I just know that Chrome does it. So, you know, you can get out there and play around with. Does anybody use Chromium? I don't. I never really have. I mean, I installed it once or twice just thinking that it was, you know, because it was open source and Linux, that it might be better than Chrome. But when I did this, I didn't even pursue that as an option. I just went straight to Chrome because that's what the Uncle Internet said. You know, I always listen to Uncle Internet. So, does that answer your question? I hope.
Yep.
All right.
I'm sorry. One more thing. Audio capture itself is not something I thought about, and I didn't think that I wouldn't think to routinely use a browser to do it. Somehow I'd figure that there's an audio program that you
and there
pop
is
up. Yeah.
There's one called Audacity, and well, one of the things that started this off was me not being able to use the mic on the Acer computer that I bought. So and I'd always used Audacity to capture audio, to do sound recordings and to, you know, to pull stuff, you know, if you want to tape something or whatever, and then play it back. But my experience with Audacity was in the old days, several years ago, wasn't good. And then this time around, I ran into that problem where it didn't recognize Audacity. I couldn't configure Audacity to get it to use the microphone built into the laptop. So,
Well, I got a question there. Are you using Pipewire on your computers?
I'm using whatever they install.
Because
whatever Ubuntu installs. I know that MX and some of those things use different audio frameworks, but I think there is what was that one you mentioned before? You said you went to something before.
I did.
Yeah.
I went to something.
Anyway, there again, tried to configure all those things, but it didn't work. Nothing worked.
That's why I'm mentioning this, because Pulse Audio and now Pipewire both work with Pavu, which controls both volume and also it's like a patch kit, I guess you'd call it, where you say where do I want to take my input from, where do I want my output to go, and you do it in that. And
I
you
did
could
that,
probably select Audacity. You did that in Pavu and it didn't work.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So anyway.
Yeah, sound is tough.
Yeah, but I think with the headset, I'm thinking everything's going to work fine. So I just don't want to monkey around too much, because it's not worth my time if something else works, you know.
Sure.
So
you're not getting paid for it.
Not just that. I mean, I'm staring down the abyss.
It's fine to not understand everything that's going on your computer.
Yeah, I've just given up on understanding everything that's going on.
That's called falling behind.
Yeah.
Gracefully.
And I'm doing it perfectly.
Anything else, Gene?
I think that was it. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Gene. Steve, what's going on other than your back stuff?
Yeah. Well, I have, we're in a chronic decluttering mode, as most people are, I think, when they get into the 80s. And, and one of the things I wanted to do, and this is with sound, was I had set up years ago a bunch of my favorite music and put it on an SD card and stuck it into a media player that I carry around with me. And so far, the media player has not run out of gas. It's a tiny little thing for probably 10 years or more. And I carried with me in the car, plug it into the car, and then I can listen to my favorite music without interruptions or advertisements. And I decided I have about maybe 100 CDs was sitting in the basement, and I was going to go through and see if I can add some of that music to each of my computers. So that led me on a trail of finding what would be the proper software. So I got a Sunder. Basically, I settled on I used to use ABCDE, but when I tried to install it on my SID Debian, what SID is, the cutting edge. And when I try to install the current version of ABCDE on that, it was dragging in a whole bunch of dependencies that I didn't otherwise need. So I looked for an alternative, and it turns out that Asunder is part of what you get in Antics Full, and I just installed that, and I think there were two dependencies, and that does the job very nicely. So now it's mainly a question of, and this is the hard part for me, making decisions about which CDs will make the cut, and do I want all the songs on the CD? I realize in the process that 2/3 of what I have are classical music, which I really don't have much interest in trying to put on a media player so I can listen while I'm driving to 40 minutes of Beethoven. It's nice music. I mean, it's classical music and well regarded. So that's my thing with that, and Linux. And in the process, I wanted to retrieve what I had in 2 old hard drives. I had 2 old hard drives I had stored music and files on, and I couldn't make them disgorge. And so my neighbor, helped, because he had a little box you could stick the hard drive into and then connect it, and it worked. So I got what I thought were all the music. Some of them, about 7 out of 30 different CDs that I had previously recorded, were empty, and I'm not sure why. So I guess one of the things I have to do is to re-record those and then check. But it's interesting. I mean, obviously what you do there is you say, hey, maybe you need to clean your CD, with a CD. And I have one of those CD cleaners. And otherwise, I don't know. Maybe it was a bad day when I recorded it and I was drinking too much. And that's mainly, I'm just continuing with, I've got 3 computers that I use. All of them are running Antics, basically. And I'm just happy sticking with that. The forum is nice because people are always reporting what their problems are. It's an interesting distro because it's small, and you have basically one lead developer. I think there are other folks who are stepping up now and are taking on some responsibility. So if he reaches a point where he can't do, 82.5% of the work, that it might become a more of a team endeavor, which is going to be good for longevity. But its main claim to fame is that it's a light computer suitable for people who can't afford to keep getting new computers and want to retain and use their old ones. And the secondary thing is that it's a distro that abhors at least System D, and makes an effort to avoid that. It's interesting when you start thinking of avoiding clutter. Then the question is, okay, here's a package. Which package should be in this distro? It should be one that doesn't have a lot of dependencies. And I didn't realize, maybe it's obvious to everybody else, that the primary distro developers, like in Debian, if you get a Debian, they will decide what the dependencies are, even if those dependencies aren't really needed. And I didn't realize that. So that if you have someone who's skillful enough about taking a particular package and saying, "Oh, we don't really," we'll build it without putting in that you must use this as a dependency. And then and so I'll tell you. So I'll tell you if. Let me see, where was I at? I don't know that it matters. Anyway, I think I finished with antics. Go ahead, Gene.
No, I was just wondering, you said that you had some empty files there. Was that all done on Linux, Steve, or was that in your pre-Linux days?
Actually, it's a good question, because one of them, I had at one point a Mac, and so one hard drive came from the Mac, but they both use the same formats. I don't know that it could have been an issue. Mac allegedly would be super terrific for audio video. So no,
Yeah.
I guess it's just me. I did some things wrong, or I made the things up and then I never recorded it and thought I had. Um, so that was one thing. Um, and I'm not sure that there's anything else related to Linux that I have that's important to spill. So I'll pass, and maybe there's some things that will be interesting for me to listen to.
Thanks, Steve. Larry, what do you have going on?
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Good. I thought I would just chime in about some personal issues too, because everybody else is talking about health issues and so forth.
Vent away.
Children. Actually, I'm down at my niece's place in Hickory. I wasn't planning on coming here, but she said last week that her father, he doesn't live here either. He lives down in Newbern, the other side of Raleigh, was admitted to a hospital on Tuesday because of sepsis, because he cut his hand on a barnacle.
That's not a good sign.
It didn't sound too good to me. And so she left and went home to her parents, my sister and her father, and asked me to come down here and help look after these two boys. One of them's going to be 6 in July, and the other one is 7 years old. They're a handful. Evidently, her father's doing better and got out of the hospital yesterday, but he's only 60, so it makes some of you other older guys feel good. But he was up here in April, and before he came, I heard that he had COVID for a month. So I don't know if that affected his immune system or what, because what I read is that sepsis usually affects people with compromised immune systems. But anyway, he may be out of the woods now, but it kind of worried me. Anyway, we got these two boys here. The 7-year-old, I think he's in first grade. So I mean, the boy knows how to cruise around with YouTube videos. That's first grade, kindergarten. That is what these kids are learning nowadays. I mean, he gets here on my touchpad on this old Dell. I mean, he cruises around and he finds all kinds of monster truck and children's videos that he loves. That's what he wants. If he sees my computer, I want to look at this. And then he gets. This was a while ago, month two ago. I was told that he gets on Amazon, buys a $300. What I heard about it was a mountain bike on one of his relatives' credit cards, and used a $100 gift certificate they had to get it shipped here. And when I asked him about it, he said, "Oh, it was a dirt bike." And then today he says, they couldn't return it. It's up in the attic. So this is what 7-year-olds, I mean, you're talking about recording things to give to so your children can know what you thought about it. The way I look at it is, this is a different world from what I grew up in. Unbelievable what these kids have nowadays, and just wild to me. That's why you kind of have to watch them all the time, what they want to play with and what they can get into and so forth. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth for right now. If anybody wants to chime in, feel free.
I would say keep your credit card very safe, Larry.
Well, I agree. I mean, he couldn't do that on my computer. I don't keep personal information on my computers, but evidently his parents do. Which I don't think they're very, computer savvy as far as having everything with their phones.
Well, hopefully that woke them up.
And their Windows computers with all their personal information. Are they crazy? I mean, I don't understand. As far as I'm concerned, I agree with Rusty and you sometimes about, privacy and, having this live streaming on and sending out all this information about your whereabouts and so forth from this meeting too. I mean, I'm just super paranoid compared to them. The 7-year-old can go and just buy whatever he wants on Amazon and have it delivered.
Larry, it's the cookie that's sitting there courtesy of Amazon, and the computer user has a priority that there's nothing that can be restrained in the realm of shopping. It must all be there ready for action at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I see that. But when you try to tell them something like tell them about how insecure everything is, and got to be very careful, it's like, why waste your time? And they're not listening to what you're saying. So they know everything. They're the techie people, not me. I hate with Windows. Windows will fix everything for you.
While we've got Larry reciting things, I'm going to tell everyone that I don't see Larry as often on his bike going from Asheville to Black Mountain, but I saw him going somewhere yesterday between Swannanoa and Black Mountain. So he's still out there cranking the pedals.
Yeah, that's my routine, regular bicycle ride is from Black Mountain all the way to East Asheville. I don't usually make it up to where you lived up there on Beverly Hills. Is that the name of the place? Anyway.
Yeah, that's California, right? Yeah.
But
let's keep it there.
It's really been interesting, I would say, riding through Swannanoa and back and forth regularly and see what's been going on there since last fall. It's been wild, unbelievable. I mean, I went there, rode a bicycle from Black Mountain to Swannanoa on the 28th, day after Helene. And when you get into Swannanoa and half the road is gone there past the Whitson Avenue Bridge, and all the power poles are across the road. Huge house trailer was across the road. There were torn up cars along the road. It was like unbelievable. When I got back to Black Mountain, our neighborhood, and some of my neighbors were trying to move an RV. It was parked by another RV that was smashed by a huge tree. And they were they said, Larry, we need your advice to how to move this piece of a tree so we can get the RV out without damaging the mirror. You want to know my advice? My advice is, after I just went to Swananoa, we should count our blessings.
Yeah.
Because we had nothing. We had all our bridges messed up and trees on houses and water all over the place, but there was nothing that looked anywhere close to what happened in Swananoa. You know, it's still a mess in Swananoa.
The impressive thing are the boulder piles that arrived. These boulder piles were not down in the riverbed. They were deposited on the equivalent of the floodplain altitude. And they basically jumped out of the river somewhere upstream of the business district in Swananoa and never found their way back into the riverbed, but they just kept, they kind of, once an accumulation starts, it builds up bigger and bigger. And right now there's probably two boulder piles that are like 25 and maybe 50 yards long and, 12, 20 feet high. And no one's figured out what to do with them. They just came down the river and that's where they decided to stop.
Well, we have a creek right next to my neighbor's house, and she has a culvert that was clogged up for 2 weeks before I got it opened up again. And we got a massive pile of rocks right there, too.
Yeah.
We see every single day. And I go out there occasionally and dig a little bit, throw some rocks out, dug up the steps that she had going down to the creek. And then we had 10 or 15 or more landslides up in the woods going down into creeks. I mean, it's just unreal. I mean, like I said, we have nothing compared to Swananoa. I mean, all that stuff from our neighborhood and every other neighborhood around on the south side of Mount Mitchell basically washed through Swananoa.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And some of it went all the way to Tennessee, but the boulder piles stayed put.
I mean, a lot of cars.
At least that one.
I think several hundred cars washed down the rivers too, Swananoa and French Broad. Bodies too.
And U-Haul trailers.
Oh yeah. So that's enough about the real world for me right now, I guess.
All right. Thanks, Larry. Rusty, what else you got going on?
Well, I have a request. If anybody has a suggestion, I really haven't gotten organized in terms of doing rsync backup. It's always been on my to-do list, but I never seem to get it done. And what halts me is that every time I think about backing up, I'm realizing if I just start replicating this collection, I already have duplicates hiding all over the place because, you back up 2 folders, maybe you put those 2 folders in another folder and then, or you supplement a folder by adding, maybe 100 files or this way or that. So you end up with all these duplicates. So my question is, has anybody used a duplicate finder that can deliver it on a silver platter? Just an itemization, you just point it to a whole bunch of folders, maybe on a backup drive, and say, tell me what duplicates I have so I can avoid duplicating them yet again. And preferably something that maps out that and is graphically driven, whatever the underlying software. So that's what I'm throwing out. Anybody know of think of it as a search tool that not only searches, but organizes the results so that you can see where you have, kept adding folder upon folder and duplicating.
I'm not aware of such a tool, but I definitely could use one because I've, one of the last times I went to like rebuild the machine and copy things over, it's like, oh, I've run out of room here. Then I realized like I have this here and I also have it here, and
Yes.
like why am I doing this? Let let's see if anyone knows, but I don't off the top of my head, and I would love to know if something exists. Steve?
Yeah, I can't give you a specific one, but I do believe that there's a number of them because I've heard references to them. And I mean, that's a very basic kind of thing. How do we get rid of duplicates, and better finders than say locate or some of the other tools. There's really a number of them that I've heard of. I have never taken the time to try to track one down. And I'm not even going to mention the infamous notion of ASS, that is artificial stupidities, that might help you do that.
Yeah. Well, of course, another example of where this particularly happens, we always are paranoid. Let's save those photos. Be sure to back them up because the day will come when we will review them all and then we'll be sad if we missed any. So while we're at it, let's just double copy this and triple copy it and or add merge folders, whatever. For this reason, Digicam has a duplicate finder. I'm intending to eventually look at Kphoto, which is a KDE product. And I don't know if it has the duplicate finder, but I really need it just for files generally, using the metadata of file size, file date, and file name. Essentially, that's what needs to be reviewed to imply or recommend that any file is a duplicate. And the key is to deliver the results so that you can make the decision and say, yes, I agree that not only is this file a duplicate of its twins, but this whole folder or all the other files from this period of time represent duplicates from such and over such and such a folder. But if anybody hears in the coming weeks or up to next month's meeting, I'd just like to hear on that. We don't need to discuss that particularly, but I'm putting the word out to keep an eye out.
So I found a couple tools with an extremely fast search. So I don't know if you've heard of either of them and vetted them, but they're both GUI tools and they both apparently have this sort of functionality. One's called Dupe Guru and the other's called FS Lint. So let me know if either of those work out for you. And again, I'll let you be the guinea pig and then I'll try with the one that works.
Could you send those two links later on?
I put them in the chat. I didn't really get a link. Well, actually, I do apparently have a link for this one. It looks like it's take everything with a grain of salt because I'm not looking very hard. Here's the one for FS Lint.
I won't. I'm on a cell phone in a barn after 3 days of doing roofing, so I'm not very chattable, but I could receive it through email.
All right, looks okay. I think this is the link again. Take with a grain of salt. I could be sending you malware, but they're in the chat now.
Thank you. So that's me.
All right. Thanks, Rusty. Pete?
I've just been back about 2 weeks from Florida. It was getting up in the 90s every day. I had 5 doctor's appointments the first week I got back. I got A+ from 4. One had to be rescheduled to the following 2 weeks later. That was my dentist, and I did well at that also. So I'm in pretty good shape. I hear the siren. Not doing much with computers. I'm trying to get back in the groove up here. The grass was up to my knees. I still have a lot of wood laying on the ground from the hurricane that I have to chop up and throw down the hill towards Swananoa.
Just don't hit Larry. Or Rusty.
No, I don't. It only goes down about 20 feet. What is the cliffs at High Carolina? What, 3,000 acres on the slope, all the way around to the north and to the east. As far as I know, they still own it. They haven't done anything with it for 10 or more years. I assume it's up for sale, but I can't imagine who could buy it or how much they would ask for it. A lot of money, I'm guessing. So I got a question for Steve. You mentioned something about drinking. I've got a good friend's birthday coming up tomorrow. I want to buy him a bottle of gin. I do not know anything about liquor. Where do I buy it, and what brand do I look for? Steve.
Oh, I know. You go to the liquor store for liquor, and that's
Where is
the ABC stores.
it? All right.
Is the state stores. So
All right.
where are you located exactly?
I'm just on the edge of Fairview between Route 9 and 74.
Yeah, I think if I would just do a search. I would just do a search on the ABC stores, Google search, and see where the nearest one to you is.
Okay.
I think they all. Oh, wait a minute. Gene, the expert, is going to speak.
No, as far as brands go, Pete,
Yes.
Bombay Sapphire is good. Steve, I don't know if you drink gin, but
I'm aware of Bombay Sapphire. I think I've seen their ads.
And Tanqueray.
Both
of those are classics. And then there's, I guess, Beefeater maybe.
Yeah, Beefeater, somebody else said that.
But there's a lot of.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a lot of different like boutique brands and so forth, but I would suggest it might be a little more special is a local, and I don't know if they were affected by the storm, and I haven't been there. I can't really drink anymore. But I went to visit the Oak and Grist, which is over Black Mountain, Swananoa way, or at least that's where they used to be, and they have a gin. They do. I think their interest long term is like aged spirits, but gin is not an aged spirit, so they're able to release it, now and make their money that way. They've done some interesting work with gin, so I know they're a local concern. So if you're interested in a local gin, their stuff should be available at ABC's or at their location, assuming that they're there, because the way things are.
What was the name
here.
of it again?
Oak and Grist.
Oak and
Grist, Grist.
Oh, Grist. Okay.
Brent, can I ask you? I'm under the impression that in the state of North Carolina, the only people who can sell booze are the ABC stores. You're telling me that it's not true.
They passed an exception, I think, like 5-6 years ago, to allow distilleries to sell their own goods to some extent.
Yeah, there have been distilleries crop up all over Asheville. So you're behind the times, Steve.
I guess so.
When it comes to booze, you got it.
Well, there's an ABC store in Black Mountain. I don't know how hard it is for you to get to Black Mountain. I mean, Route 9, we still see dump trucks going up and down Route 9 every day. and they were just constant for a while because Route 9 had landslides on it. I don't know
Right.
what kind of shape it is. It's in up there now. It's kind of
I feel
wild.
sure there's an ABC store in Fairview too, Pete.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I'm not sure. I have to look it up on.
You haven't looked hard enough.
No. Okay. So, it's trying to keep up. I've got a house in Florida. I got a house here, and I got a house up in Vermont where my daughter lives. It's a challenge, inside, outside. I don't know if I'm kind of thinking the way you're thinking, Gene. Is it worth it all? But my mountaintop house is really special. Once you get out of here, you can't get back in because nothing goes up for sale. It goes to a neighbor or a friend, or if it goes up for sale. There's only 17 houses up here on about 600 acres. It's very quiet, and I got a crummy squirrel running around on my deck right now. I don't know what he's going crazy about, but got to get out and chase him away. That's about it for me, Brett.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay.
I find myself with the Florida house right now because my mother passed away, and we're going to be enjoying that Florida house the start of July. So
Ooh,
I
that's not enough time.
we're going to go to the beach. So we're gonna try to have a very summary Florida thing going on. I'm going to, I can't commit to being at the next meeting as a result because of that happening early in the, I don't know when the meeting next hits, but it's got to be in the week that I'm there. When is that actually happening? The next looks like the 5th. Yeah, that's going to be right. Oh, yeah, that's right in the middle of things. Okay, so yeah, not going to commit one way or the other. So what do I got going on? I recently, just in the past couple of days, was asked to assist with a Linux install at work, and they were very specific that they needed to use a CasaOS derivative, and they had decided to use Alma Linux. So for the first time in a very long time, I installed a CentOS box, an Alma box on our network. We used to use CentOS when the licensing was more favorable, when the ecosystem was more favorable for years and years before we moved to Debian. And I'm extremely happy we moved to Debian and still using Debian. In fact, I started using Debian at home. So I'm kind of all Debian, all places, except for now this one. And it's very irritating to have something that's different, but you gotta, when there's a vendor involved, you gotta do what the vendor allows to some extent. So it went well. We installed a very minimal install, and I walked the person on the systems team, because we're in an unfortunate situation where the team that is supposed to run all the servers has zero Linux knowledge. So when there's a Linux server, it's still me. It needs to not be that way because I frankly have enough to do. So there's going to be some cross training and some formal training for Linux for that team. So I'm very excited because hopefully that means right now when something comes along and there's a decision to run it on Linux or Windows, I always make the decision to run it on Windows, because if we decide to run it on Linux, it means I support it. And that's just frankly not a supportable way to do things when it's just one guy. So that does mean that theoretically we'll have more options to run things on Linux at work if we have a team that is responsible for it instead of just lonely old me. So that's what I got going on there. I'm flailing because I had.
What's Brent? Can you elucidate a little bit? Alma Linux. What?
Never heard of it.
It's a CentOS. It's basically like CentOS was. It's, Red Hat with the stuff stripped out of it.
What
So
stuff?
like the Red Hat branding. That's
Yeah.
kind of what CentOS always was, and then Red Hat bought CentOS and turned it into its own thing. And then there was like this Rocky Alma, and
Oh, yeah.
I've not really been following that because like I said, I got off that train, right, and I started using um
Yeah.
Debian for all the things. But yeah, it's a Red Hat RPM thing, and
Okay.
again, it was a blast from the past because I didn't. It's been a long time since I used those tools, so I had to remind myself of how to use the tools, and I never really quite got in the habit of using DNF anyway. So it's like every time it's like Yum, no, not Yum, DNF. Like I don't even know the difference, but I know that DNF's the new thing. And not that new, but
Is it a security thing that they're using that for, or?
no, it's something having to do with cardiology.
Oh.
I don't know exactly what.
You don't think it has to do with licensing and cost? That with Alma they don't have to.
Oh no, I
pay Red Hat?
absolutely, yeah. We're not going to start paying Red Hat in our environment. It's for the tiny handful of Linux servers that we have now. We don't need that level of support or whatever.
So
So
Alma is like free Red Hat?
exactly, and that's what I said. That's what CentOS was for years and years
Yeah, right.
for us.
Okay.
And I mean, we used CentOS since like from 2009 to I don't know, a handful of years ago whenever I stopped using it. And now we're using Debian for most things, but again, there are some vendors that only support this or that, and that was decided. And again, it was good to hear. I mean, in some ways, it was annoying that they didn't say like, Brett, what do you think about this? But the systems team opted to we're doing it this way. And that's fine because if they're going to support it, they make those decisions, and I want them to.
Brent, I guess it sounds like somebody says we need this program for cardiology, and then it turns out that that program only runs on Alma Linux, or if you don't have Red Hat, it'll run on Alma Linux, and they pick it that way rather than saying we'll pick a program that is compatible with what we're already using, so we don't have to add additional complexity.
I mean, that's just not the way things work in our environment. We're lucky if we're involved at all before the purchasing, and that's true of both of our systems team and security team. And things are a lot better than they used to be. But it used to be, it's like, oh, we bought this thing, now implement it. It's like, but you didn't ask if we can run this thing. Now there is a process. But yeah, I mean, running a particular so many things are appliances anyway and run CentOS, right? That has been a thing for a long time. We have dozens of applications that run on CentOS. It's just that we don't have direct control of that CentOS operating system because it's managed soup to nuts by the application vendor. So it's not really that weird to have something. And again, if down the line the systems team decides that Alma is more supportable, then that's fine. Or if they want to continue the Debian thing, I'm fine to hand it off because I said I don't have to do all the things. Um, my number of Linux servers has been dwindling as of late because of the little things I've done to make things work have been replaced by other more enterprise viable solutions, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, we've probably saved millions of dollars by the little hacks that I've done to avoid buying big products. Some of those hacks keep clipping along. Like I have a secure file solution just using like an SFTP, like a SSH based file transfer. The way I've implemented it is both convenient and secure, and they've looked into products in that realm or licensing products they have for those features, and they are very expensive. So they just opt to continue to use the free thing, and free means somebody's got to support it, but I can support it with a very small amount of my time because it's already built and it gets updated with the OS, and it's very standards based and doesn't use additional storage. So it's very, very manageable. But there's a lot of little hacks like that in our environment. But again, I don't need to support them forever. And if they choose to do something, it doesn't hurt my feelings. It's just one fewer thing for me to do. Arnold would like to participate. He's pointing out, I'm sure, the fact that he said, are there any thoughts about moving the meeting next month due to the holiday?
The meeting's on what, Saturday? And that's the 4th of July weekend?
Yes, I know that I have and don't you let this sway you too much, but I have an engagement on the 12th. So if we did move it to the 12th, I would definitely not be participating.
I'm in Hawaii, so I might be. It depends if it's still on a cruise and if they can access the internet from there with ease.
Well,
But
it sounded
otherwise,
like
12th
Dan
might
was
not be good.
planning on doing continuing his presentation at the next meeting. So maybe get input from him too.
Yeah, we'll take that to the Arnold, if you don't mind, because I'm the worst at spinning things up on the email loops. But if you don't mind asking that question to Dan and others, we could certainly discuss that. Like I said, I don't necessarily need to be there for it to get moved, and it doesn't necessarily have to be on a Saturday either. It would be really weird for it to not be, but
It would.
I swear.
So, Steve, is there room in your luggage for somebody to go to Hawaii with you?
I barely have room for my stimulator.
Oh yeah, gotta take that with you.
They won't let
Maybe
you
not.
go
I
to-
don't know. It may be June 30th, may be the last day I'm supposed to use it, or June 27th. I have to check if I can find a spine surgeon to advise me.
Who was the one that did? A friend of mine. I think his name started with an R. He may have retired by now, though. He was.
Oh, is he a guy at Blue Ridge, or
No,
I know
he
they
was
have some
just,
spine surgeons.
Oh, he wasn't there like a spine clinic somewhere.
Oh yeah. In addition, in the same building with Mission Spine is Carolina Spine and Neurosurgery. So there's two spine groups there. I don't know how long that's gonna work if they only have one spine surgeon in Mission Spine, and I'm not sure that they have any other spine surgeons at Mission Spine at this time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, good luck, Steve.
yeah. Well, knock on wood.
Yes, Pete.
I got a question for Steve. Do you still go to Piazza? Is it open?
We haven't gone in a long time. With age, where we restrict, I find we're driving shorter distances. There's a place, I'm going to mention this in case anybody else has experience or interest in it. There's a Mexican restaurant that we both kind of like better than most of the other Mexican restaurants. That's called La Rumba. And it's south of the Asheville Mall. And for a while, the road coming down the Asheville Mall was blocked where at the main intersection, I was at 81 or something, or 74. And now it's open again.
La Rumba?
Yeah, La Rumba. But Piazza, I haven't checked.
Okay.
But give them a call or look at if they have a website that they keep up to date, which is always a question. I
Yeah.
have a question for you, Pete.
Yeah.
I said, it sounds like you're doing all your home maintenance yourself. And I have tremendous awe that you can do that for 3 houses. And I just have this vision of you with your own private airplane going up Vermont, Florida. All right, I need to do this. All right, I'll be back.
It's interesting because I had 2 dogs and they both passed within the last roughly year to 2 years ago. So I have the option of flying because I used to have to drive. But if I fly, I miss the option of stopping off in Jersey where we used to live and seeing friends if I'm heading up towards Vermont. And I'm still driving.
So how do you get by air from this area? I mean, you go to Charlotte then
To go
fly,
where?
to fly to Vermont.
I don't know. I haven't flown up there.
So what I was figuring was you fly into Newark, go visit your friends, and from Newark you can get to either by train possibly, and then no, you'd have to fly. The train only goes on west of Lake Champlain. Where are you in Vermont? I used to live very long time ago in the 70s. I lived for a year and a half in a small town called Newport.
Okay, we're in Montpelier, the state capital.
Oh,
The
Newport is 8 miles to the border.
Smallest state capital in the country, 7,000 people.
Wow.
The only state capital in the country that has no McDonald's. And they pride themselves on that. Yeah.
Well, you Vermonters are exceptional people.
They are up there. My daughter's living up there. That's why, I have a place. It's a 2-day drive from here, and I stop off in western New Jersey, north of Highbridge, where we raised our kids for 32 years. I can't remember the name of the town. Good question. I wrote it down somewhere. Say it again.
No, I was going to ask Steve. You mentioned that you had tried Asunder, and then the other ripping software.
This one Brent gave an approval to. I said ABCDE. He went, yeah.
I used it for years, except for I mean, there's Spotify now, Steve. Like you have all the songs, all over the place and on all your devices without. I still have a library, an MP3 library that I created with. The way I ran ABCDE is you basically can set like a config file. So you say, I want to name them this way. I want to use these codecs. I want to either use like MP3 or, FLAC or whatever. And then, you just basically one after the other, you basically run it and then it runs on a disk, pops the disk out. You put the disk in, you run it again, rinse and repeat, right?
Yes.
And I burned all my things that way. Very convenient, all CLI, which, helps with stability and so forth. And it worked. And to tell you the truth, I'm still happy it's there because there are a very small subset of things that are not licensed on the streaming platforms. Like there's one like XTC album that I just can't listen to online, so it's nice that I have this, but at some point I'm just going to take my folder of CDs and give them away to somebody, and I'm going to just not worry about backing up my library anymore, except for those handful of things I need, because it really is so convenient to just do things in the cloud, right? I mean, maybe at some point, like everything will fall apart and I will miss those CDs or not, miss not having the local library because, society has fallen and so has Spotify. But until it does, man, I just don't see touching that stuff.
Well, see, now that's an indication for you having your own personal cloud.
Yeah.
where you put all of your CDs, stream, use A, B, C, D, E, and put them on your personal cloud, and then wherever you are, you just go listen to the music nobody else can find.
That's actually not a bad idea. I may do that because I don't. I mean, I have them in my I used to keep putting that library on all my phones. Right? It's small enough that it does fit on a modern phone, but like I stopped doing it because I started using Spotify, and I don't really have a clear notion of exactly what is missing. So I need to document that because I gave that one example, but I don't really know what else isn't on Spotify until those occasional things where it's like, where the heck is this? Because it doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Well, I think a lot of our stuff we picked up at local events. Somebody was selling their own CD. So
Yeah.
Gene has two fingers up.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that one of the things that I used for years for doing CDs was K3B. Don't know if anybody's ever used that.
Never heard of it.
I think I stumbled across it before I landed on ABCDE.
Yeah, I just haven't tried it, but I've heard of it. I think that the K is for what's the desktop
Ubuntu.
KDE.
KDE, thank you.
KDE.
So it's part of the I think it's well regarded. But you've used it.
Yeah, I have.
Gene. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's special about Asunder?
Nothing as far as I know. It just, first of all, it's already in the Antics repository. It's installed if you do Antics full. I didn't realize it. Secondly, it didn't have a lot of dependencies. And when I tried it, it was as easy as ABCD.
Is it a CLI tool like ABCD?
I think it's only graphical. But I can live with that. It may be there's another one that's both, and I forget what it is. That you can do it either one, but I think Asunder is kind of a graphical because I click on it and up popped a little window, and it didn't look like a terminal window that, and I haven't really investigated. I think you launch it. Well, you can launch it from the terminal probably, user bin Asunder will launch it if you don't have something to click on. Which is a separate issue. When you the minimalist one I did, a lot of stuff is not in the menus, and they don't automatically necessarily populate the menu when you install a package. So there, you're reduced to knowing how to launch it from the CLIA. But but if it's graphical, it still comes out graphical. Anybody here, from the point of view of music and listening, Easy Effects familiar with?
Heard of it, never used it.
What's the name of it?
Easy, one word, Easy Effects.
Nope.
It's a way of modifying the sound. I know it's coupled with another thing in Antics, acoustic color, and up pops a little screen where you can do it as if it's in a cathedral, or it's an orchestra, or it's jazz. So each one is supposed to automatically tweak the equalizer, the frequencies, and emphasize this, that, and the other. Beyond that,
if you really want to get into sound production, look at Audacity. I mean, it's very sophisticated for what it is.
Very
complicated. It was just probably too sophisticated for me.
I'm happy with sophisticated as long as it's easy.
This is sophisticated. Well, to me, not easy, but there again, I'm a newbie, so.
Yeah.
I used to use it a lot, and it's not easy either. I had to write it down, but I couldn't remember it from one time to the next.
All right.
Any parting words from anybody? We ready to wrap this thing up?
Looking up ABC stores.
Oh.
Quick before
He's got to get his drink on
before withdrawal.
All righty. See you guys.
Yep.
Thanks all.
Till July or August or
maybe
whenever.
see you next month. Like I said, let's take that discussion. As of right now, we're saying the 5th, but We'll see.
Okay.
All right. Thanks all.
No,
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.